The overall goal of the Convention on Biological Diversity is to halt the loss of biodiversity and ecosystem services by 2020. However, despite the acceleration in policies and management responses, it is very unlikely that the negative trends in the state of biodiversity will be reversed by 2020. MarCons aims to promote collaborative research to support marine management, conservation planning and policy development, with an ultimate goal to bridge the gap between conservation science and policy makers and contribute to the challenge of halting biodiversity loss in the European and contiguous seas by 2020.
To transfer the information that we have in research from the biological sciences, from geography, from the different areas that the researchers work in, and actually make it digestible for policymakers. So to write documents, to provide advice. Many of the researchers that work in the MarCons already work to a certain degree with policymakers at not only European level but also state level and even county and local level. So we have a very diverse group of people working with different levels of policy making.
Policies are, one, they're not very well known. The other problem is that there are very, very good laws and regulations on the books that exist. In some cases, there is no enforcement. There are no mechanisms of enforcement. One of the problems with international regulation and the problem of marine conservation, of conserving the important elements of the marine environment, is that these are wicked problems. These are very, very complex problems that cross international borders many times. Ecosystems don't pay attention to socially constructed human anthropogenic borders. So in other words, countries have to work together, groups of people have to work together. It's a collective action problem that needs to be solved.
Researchers basically come from all backgrounds. I'm personally a geographer. We have a lot of, obviously, conservation biologists working with us, but we also have legal specialists. We have people working directly in management of protected areas, but also working in policy development.
The goal of the general action is to further marine conservation. There's a lot of problems in the ocean today. There's threatened species, pollution problems, problems with invasive species, habitat destruction, loss of ecosystem services. I could go on and on. There are a lot of problems, and the goal of this action is to further scientific endeavor with the specific goal of advancing marine conservation.
The aim of our working group is to promote integrated conservation planning by identifying gaps in current efforts of the European Union for the conservation of species that depend on multiple ecosystems across realms, and by developing new methods for integrated spatial plans.
Climate change is so much related to the oceans and to the health of ecosystems of the ocean and marine areas, fresh water. There's so many issues that are on a daily basis impacting our lives.
The last research we did actually covered the entire Adriatic basin. So basically we did aerial surveys with the aim of identifying or learning about the distribution and abundance of these large marine vertebrates in the entire Adriatic Sea. Because conservation of animals which are migratory in one part, I don't know, in Italy or Montenegro, without considering that they're actually coming in Croatia, it doesn't work. So we all should know how these animals use the space in order to be able to actually manage these animal populations.
In the Mediterranean is the worst place actually for a shark to live, because the exploitation of the fish stocks is so high, and the sharks are facing this as the main threat. While in other areas now they're developing also ecotourism, diving with shark, like for example in South Africa, that is, it's more valuable to have a shark alive in South Africa than to fish a shark. But now this is the opposite in the Mediterranean. So now in the Mediterranean mostly we exploit sharks, even if they are not highly commercial. We do as a bycatch, and we eat more sharks than what we think, because sometimes it's been served as swordfish or as another species.
What I see is that policies in Europe have been developed focusing in northern countries, because they were at least one step ahead of the southern ones. But the things that work in the northern countries is not ensured that will work in the same way in other places. It could work in a different way or even in the opposite way. So up to today there has been a number of unsuccessful histories in the implementation of policies in the Mediterranean region. For example, with the common fisheries policy there has been a number of problems.
An influence of something that happens in Brazil may or not affect what happens in Uruguay, in the coast of Uruguay or Argentina, or even in the global oceans. And on the other hand, in closed seas, the level of influence from a certain action in one country probably will certainly affect the other countries. So it's very, very important to have this regional action.
Marine protection should really be at the top priority of conservation nowadays, because the oceans and the coastal areas enshrine some of the most important things, both in Europe but also worldwide. And it is a complicated area because the instruments that we have to be applied are worldwide instruments. If we look at, for example, the International Maritime Organization or the World Heritage Convention, these are international instruments which we have to apply locally, regionally, nationally. And this is always a challenge for most of the countries.
If people don't care, or if it's oftentimes a result of them not knowing and not being aware of the interconnectedness of problems on the ground, problems that they're suffering in their daily lives, and this relationship to the ecosystem and the importance of healthy ecosystems.